Hello everybody and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. I hope you guys are having a great week. Whenever you're watching this, I hope you're having a great day. I appreciate you and I'm sure you're doing something great to help the world. Today we are continuing the Leonardo DiCaprio series. If you'll remember, the last one we did was Titanic, which was fantastic. It blew me out of the water. I'm sorry. This one sunk down in the water, and this movie was The Man in the Iron Mask. The Man in the Iron Mask was made in 1998 and was directed and written by Randall Wallace. Before I move into the review, I just want to mention you guys should be subscribing. It really helps me a lot. I really hope that you pause the video real quick, and then just scroll down a little bit, hit that little red button down there, and subscribe to my channel if you like my my videos. And subscribe, comment down below what you want me to do next, and I'll definitely review. I always reply to all comments, so make sure you're commenting, and I will respond to you. So I watched this movie yesterday. I had to watch briefly the entire week. This entire week, I'm filming in one day because I work like 40 hours next week. So I had to watch all these movies like in succession. Like I just finished watching Galaxy Quest and then immediately started watching Man in the Iron Mask. And let me tell you, what a disappointment. I didn't think this was gonna happen, but we have what I consider so far Steve Carell's worst performance and Leonardo DiCaprio's worst performance in the same week. I honestly did not think that was going to happen. I didn't even know if they were going to have a low point, because so far Leonardo DiCaprio has been like A+ almost all the way down the line. This is not at all an A+. So I'm really excited to talk about this film. For those of you who don't know what this is, what I'm assuming is a lot of you, this is a movie that I don't think a lot of people have like actively looked at and like watched. They might know that it exists, but like they might not fully be watching it in terms of like, oh, this is a movie that exists. Essentially, it is about a king who is a very mean, bad guy, whose brother, that he doesn't know exists, I'm pretty sure, is locked in a basement with an iron mask on. I think he knows his brother is down there. So he's got an iron mask on, and he can't like move and like see shit, because it's like this just giant iron mask over his head. And then these musketeers, which I recently learned are just people that carry muskets, even though they don't carry muskets in the entire film. So these musketeers are trying to figure out how they're going to get rid of this king, because this king is making all of the people of Paris and France like starve because he doesn't care about them, and they want a king that's going to care about them. But the only way to become king is if you are related to the bloodline. So what they try to do is they go down and they get the brother, and they find out that he's a twin, right? So what they do is they try to replace King Louis with Philippe, who is the twin of King Louis. The issue is that Philippe has been imprisoned for 6 years and doesn't know any of the mannerisms of being a king. So he has to be taught to be mean and rude and cruel, even though Philippe doesn't want to be that at all. And essentially, they try and they fail, they try and they fail, they try and they fail. And then finally at the end, like, they just kind of get him, and like, it just kind of works. And then Philippe sends King Louis to be in the basement with the Iron Mask on forever. This movie was a waste of time, in my opinion. It was long. It was like 2 hours and 12 minutes, something like that. And it's long, and it's boring. The only fun part that I really enjoyed was like watching the ball scene where Philippe is pretending to be King Louis, and like some girl falls at his feet in an accident, and Philippe like gets up to like help her up, and everyone's confused because King Louis would normally just like look down. So like I really enjoyed that. The antithesis of like good and bad and like good and evil, and like watching to see what exactly would happen between these two characters, and I enjoyed that. However, the rest of the movie's kind of boring and dry. It might be because I don't typically like this type of movie where I don't know anything about like the Three Musketeers or whatever, and this is similar to that. I really overall did not enjoy watching this movie. It's long. It just didn't feel good. It didn't feel very good watching it. It just felt like a really big waste of time, and not to mention, Leonardo DiCaprio just, in my opinion, is not very good in this film. So let's talk about the acting now. So I can talk about the characters that are here because I think the characters are great. And like again, on paper, this would be a good idea for a film. It just feels like a good film to do. However, it's not. And if it is, they should have made it a lot shorter. This movie could have been probably about an hour and a half and might have been better. But let's talk about Leonardo DiCaprio first, who plays King Louis and Philippe. So they're twins, so he can play both. However, we never really see them both on screen at the same time because at that time, that kind of like I don't know if you ever watched iCarly, but in iCarly, Sam has a twin. So what they did was they just layered the two on top of each other and had her play both parts. But in this, they didn't really do that very often. They just had a different character play a different person and then not show his face. They did it. They did a layering technique, I think, one time in the entire film, so it really felt stupid. Watching Leonardo DiCaprio like talk to himself when they would just cut, 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 cut. It's a type of filming that like works sometimes. It just doesn't work in this style of filming where we're in the medieval period and like it just felt really unnatural to watch a conversation like this in that time period. Leonardo DiCaprio was, in my opinion, not very good in this film. I think he was a very bad King Louis, particularly because Leonardo DiCaprio typically plays like nice people and like teenagers, and he's supposed to be like, you know, kind of, he's a young king, but he's supposed to be an adult, and he just still looks like a boy to me. He still looks like a teenager, and like a very young teenager, and like everyone else is like super old. They're like in their 40s and 50s, and he's over here like, yeah, I'm like 18, and like it felt awkward. And it felt like really what they were trying to do was get Leonardo DiCaprio to be in the film. And that is exactly what happened. I was actually reading this article about this, that most people that went to see this movie only saw it because Leonardo DiCaprio was in it. Which is what I'm doing. So I'm part of that statistic. However, most Leonardo DiCaprio films so far are good. I've never seen a bad Leonardo DiCaprio film until this one. I think he did a good job playing Philippe, though, overall. It's always good to see when you can watch Leonardo DiCaprio be gentle and like nice to people overall, and then watching the antithesis between his brother, and he's just not good at playing King Louis. It wasn't for him, I think. At least at this time period, he's not good at playing a mean person and like being mean. He's always talking kind of softly and like all that stuff. It just didn't feel aggressive enough to be like a true mean king, you know? Jeremy Irons as Aramis. Essentially, he's like the king's first hand, and he's like the brains of the musketeer group. So he's like, oh, I have the idea. He's the one that like had the idea to change them all out and like change the kings out. Overall, his performance is fine. I didn't really pay too much attention to it because I was really trying to focus on the plot because I was kind of confused for most of it. But overall, not bad, not good. It was like fine. It was like, yeah, okay, he's playing Aramis, that's fine. John Malkovich as Athos. So he, in my opinion, has the second best performance in the film. I like John Malkovich. I need to watch more movies with him because he's good. That might be a series in the future. Maybe. But he plays like a second father to Philippe. So he, once he rescues Philippe, is like... because his son just died. I should mention that. King Louis sent Athos' son to die in a battle on purpose. And so Athos is mad, pissed beyond belief. But then he meets Philippe, and he becomes a father figure for Philippe because Philippe doesn't really have one. Because the other king died, which is why King Louis is the king. So he becomes like a father figure, and I really enjoyed watching his performance, particularly him teaching Philippe. I think he and Leonardo DiCaprio had a really good like synergy. I don't think they're in a movie together ever again, but I really hope that they are, and I'd like to see that because they did really good in this like father-son thing. It just worked, even though they aren't like biological in the film. It really did work. We have Gerard Depardieu. It's hard to pronounce. It is French. As Porthos. And there's not much to Porthos. He's really just a sex addict who likes to have sex with all of like the farmers and stuff. He doesn't care who he does it with. He does it like every scene. It's kind of ridiculous, and it's funny, but it's kind of ridiculous. There were a couple funny times, funny moments, and almost all of them included Porthos. So he is the comic relief of the film. However, it wasn't enough relief for me. And finally, Gabriel Byrne as D'Artagnan. He had the best performance in the entire film. D'Artagnan is the secret father of the king. So, what that means is that D'Artagnan and the Queen had these two children, and they thought that it was the king's children, but it really wasn't. It was actually D'Artagnan's. So, at the end of the film, right when he's about to die, because that's when you tell people, he announces to Philippe and King Louis that he is their father. And of course, Philippe is upset, because he's like, I had a father this whole time, blah, 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 blah. Even though Athos was more of a father to both of them. But he also has to play double agent, because D'Artagnan really likes King Louis, and doesn't understand that Philippe is also his son. So then at the end, he has to decide between good and evil, and of course he goes to Philippe because he's the good guy. But in the beginning, it's hard to tell which side he's on, because he wants to make sure that his son doesn't get hurt. But now he's got to figure out, I've got two sons, they're both the same age, they both could be king, and I really enjoyed watching his performance in particular. His performance was really great. Unfortunately, the plot was awful and slow, and generally bad. The fight sequences were really bad and poorly edited. I just, in general, did not enjoy this movie almost at all. And that is why I'm going to have to give it a D. But that's going to do it for me today. Make sure you guys are subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. It really would make my year if you subscribed. But really, that's all for me. Make sure you go to the Facebook group, join the Facebook group, comment down below or on the Facebook group what you want to see next, and I'll add it to these here blue sticky notes. And as always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.